welcoming everyone to Absolute Cedar organization to this great event. I welcome you, and I promise you that today we will have a fantastic moment. You can check on us at www.absolutecedar.org for more information about what we are doing as an organization at grassroots level. The fact is that Africa occupies a sub-lower or alternative position in the global community. That is the reality. Number one is that we need to change our mindset to challenge some of these challenges that are confronting Africa. Also, we need passionate leaders, people that are passionate about the people that they are leading. We also need passionate followers, people that will be telling the leaders the right thing. And this thing doesn't go beyond the leadership within ourselves. It goes beyond the leadership even within, that is from the house. Leadership starts from the house. And we have to have passionate followers, people that can give candid advice to their leaders, people that will not mislead. We also need to be thinking about sustainability. How do we sustain ourselves in Africa? So now let me say that to make a change, you don't need too much people. We have the people and the resources. We have the people and the resources. We need to work together, and we need people that can work with us together to achieve this goal. I will pause a little and ask our panelists for the day, Engineer Samsudeen Adebayo, to give an overview of what we want to talk, an aspect of development that is essential for developing Africa. Over to you, Samaris.
Hear me clearly?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm with you. Thanks for that inciting introduction. At least it's a food for thought for every one of us to see where we're coming from and where we are and where we're supposed to be heading. So, on this note, the topic of discussion for this time review is fostering intercultural dialogue for good governance in Africa. So, permit me, I work in the built environment. I'm a project manager, a quantity surveyor, so I will be talking from the angle of the structure. And thank God, our topic is fostering an intercultural dialogue for good governance in Africa. The first problem we have in Africa emanated from the Berlin Conference of 1884, where the European powers conspired to colonize Africa. I will put it like they determined to unleash terror on Africa by colonizing Africa. All of them came down to Africa, scrambled for their own share. So that was where the problem emanated from. That is where we have a francophone, we have an anglophone, we have a lusophone in Africa, which means anyone that belongs to the anglophone colonizers will have to speak in English, while the francophones speak in French. The lusophone speaks in Portuguese. So what has that done? That has been able to start to delineate, to start to let us see ourselves not as a unit but as individuals. That is where we started, our values, our African values started desecrating from our culture to the tradition and the way we view ourselves. So that's the number one. That is where we have the personality crisis. The cultural crisis. How do I mean by personality crisis? Okay, when foreign cultures and system of governance were imposed, the way an Anglophone nation rule is totally different from Francophone nation. But as an African, we knew ourselves first as African. So when those come, we started seeing differences. That's where we started losing values as African. That's where crisis and disagreements in many African countries that we have now emanated from. So I think the most important thing we need now is we need a cultural reawakening. We need a cultural awakening, and we need to decolonize our mind. We need to decolonize. I'm using the word of our famous African Ngugi, decolonizing the mind. So that means if we must get governance right in Africa, it is very essential that we first of all let loose of all the colonial mentality. As Africans, then when we now let loose of all those colonial mentality, then we allow a cultural reawakening. How do I mean by cultural reawakening? So that we resurrect ourselves from the imposed culture of all the colonial masters and try and adopt our African culture, our mode of being, and it will give us the opportunity to cherish our culture, our value and philosophies of life. For example, let's take the Ubuntu in South Africa, and even the Omoluabi Omoluabi is among the Yorubas in the Western Nigeria. The way we view ourselves from time immemorial, we know what is called diversity, we know unity, community, and we know collaboration.
Yeah,
those values are common within the two ethnic groups I just mentioned. So we need, if we have to interculturally, we need that. It is so essential. That will give us emotional understanding. So at least African in Nigeria, we say African in far Ethiopia as a common ground African. Although we still have some. Yes, it's very essential. We still have some of Africans like our renowned Professor Mulumba that has been teaching that Africans should, although culturally according to him we are diverse, he doesn't see us as one, but he wants us to present ourselves as one so that we can have a common ground to fight to present ourselves to the world. And let's even come to look at it. In the pre-colonial era, African rank as one of the, if not the number one in art and science. In the pre-colonial era, even this built environment that I find myself now. If we go back as far as architecture and construction, we see all the Egyptian pyramids.
Yeah,
we see all the series of architectural prowess that emanated all the way from Africa. But since we have been made to see ourselves as a third world continent, all those histories are already erased.
The values,
most of all the historical findings in science. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Most of all the historical findings in science emanated from Africa. Like rightly mentioned, even the steam engines emanated from Africa. Many other series emanated from African continent. Many other African heritage. But all because Europe has decided to underdevelop Africa, according to what Walter Rodney said in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Anybody that really wants to know what has gone down should lay his hand on that book and try and see
the truth.
What were they able to do? They were able to disenfranchise us through our intracultural line. when they create diversities in between us, differences in between us, that means I will not see what you do. I will see you as a competition instead of collaborating together. That is where you see a South African government wanting to be the number one power in Africa, the same continent.
The same continent.
When we can always work together and see how we can propagate this continent among the top continents in the world. So if I continue to mention, I will mention more and more. But I think I should give the speaker an opportunity, at least with this little introduction. This would have given an insight to the topic of discourse: infrastructure dialogue, fostering infrastructure dialogue for good governance in Africa. So conclusively, if we can find our roots and find ourselves back, let's start preaching love between countries, interculturally, Africans to Africans. Let's see ourselves as brothers, so that we'll not be competing with ourselves. A Ghanaian will not tell me I need a visa to come to stay in his country.
Wow.
Likewise, the South African government will not tell me I need a visa to come and make living in their country. By so doing, we are creating enmity, long-lasting enmity, and that is just what the other continents, other power players want. So, if we're able to go back to trace our roots, then we should be able to infrastructurally create a good governance in Africa. Okay, yeah. So I don't know if there's any questions so far.
Yes. That's why I'm saying that it can be open floor. We can open floor for anyone to talk. Dr. Mega, you are here. Robo-Wado, we would like to hear from you. How do we channel our energy? Oh, Queen Oidamola.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. You are welcome.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I think maybe Olumide, Mr. Olumide, want to say something? You can.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can chime in here while we wait for Samsudeen to our connection to be restored. And I just quickly want to share this with everyone, and perhaps if Samsudeen can also hear me. I want to make sure that as we have this conversation, that we are not, and I think you also addressed this, Dr. Fowley, earlier, that we are not necessarily trying to create a solution for somebody else to, activate it, right? We're looking for our own solution to build a better tomorrow, even for ourselves and for the next generation to come behind us. And if that is our focus, right, strategically, if you look around the world, even with the colonization that we're talking about, the reality is these people that invaded Africa, they had a goal, right? They not just a 5-year goal, not just a 10-year goal. They have centuries in sight, right? And if we are going to challenge that, I think we need to start looking at a strategic investment, be it in the mindset, be it in our infrastructure, in everything that we do. It cannot be a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. We have to have a strategic century plan in place that we are going to religiously follow on every step of the way. Because I think that is really our problems. I don't know what the average age group of all of us on the line here is, but in the last 40 years or so, we've all at some point here are talking about people that are older than us, talking about how things used to be, right? And we hear this thing over and over again. And I often find myself telling the younger ones about how things used to be, even though we thought it was bad when we were younger, right? So the bottom line is we have to have 100 years at least strategic plan in place that we're going to follow through in whatever it is that we are going to do. And I don't want us to say, oh, this is, Samson didn't touch on this as well, that it cannot be, in as much as we have our differences, culturally, right? There's so much that connect us together that we can benefit from as a continent, that if we come together, put our head together, the technological changes, which I'm sure we're gonna also get into, give us so much leverage. But every day I see the opportunity being wasted in not being fully utilized, or we are offshoring those opportunities to other countries to come and take advantage of them in our own country. So in a nutshell, the bottom line, what I want to, two things I want to identify is, one, we should not, trying to, come up with a solution and as if we're advising somebody from another continent. This is our problem. What are we going to do to solve it? Two, it cannot be a 10 years plan. It has to be a long sight strategy that every one of us have in mind if we're truly going to be free from all of the the centuries of oppressions and segregation and everything that we've suffered in Africa. We have to have a long sight in mind.
Thank you very much. I think Kingsley is raising hand. Kingsley, you can proceed. You can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you.
All right.
You're welcome.
The previous gentleman who just spoke has spoken well. He buttressed more on what Mr. Engineer Samsudeen said. Now, regarding a long-term strategy, I am aware the AU, African Union, has a 50-year strategy. That's the Agenda 2063 that was formulated in 2013. That should be 8 years now.
8 years.
And one of the goals of that agenda, if I recall clearly, is to have the guns silenced in Africa by the end of last year. And as we discussed here today, the guns are not yet silenced. There is still crisis almost in all countries of Africa. So the point I'm trying to make is that not that we are lacking in strategy. What seems to be more of the problem is implementation.
Wow.
Implementation. And in situations where you do not have the right people in power, things hardly get done the right way. So that is a big challenge in almost all the countries of Africa. There are good laws, but implementation has always been the challenge. And so while we discuss solutions, we should also take some time to see how do we start implementing some of these laws on the continental level, even in our countries in Africa. If we start implementing individually, nationally, the resolutions of the AU, you will find that things will get done easily and faster. It did not take the European powers, the countries in Europe, it didn't take them much long to have an European Union. It didn't take them that much long.
Correct.
So why are we finding it? Why is it so hard for us in Africa to play down our differences and harmonize? Should I say those things that bring us together, that unite us? Emphasize more on those things so that we can work together, collaborate, and unite. For instance, countries in ECOWAS, where my country, Nigeria, I'm in Nigeria. Nigeria is under ECOWAS. we are still finding it. It's still a big challenge to work together with our neighboring countries. It's still a big challenge. So how much more on the continental level? It is important to understand that the problems that we suffer today, as the previous speaker once said, we are created with the intention for us not to get out of these problems. But still, we cannot continue to cry over spilled milk. We must summon the courage to do that which will get us out of the doldrums. It's very important. And one of those things we have to do now is, as Professor Lumumba usually say, we have to, all the countries in Africa have to deal with the rest of the world continentally. I mean, Africa as a continent must not deal with the world as countries in a continent, but must come together as one unit to face the rest of the world and to address these challenges. Because if we do it individually as a nation, you will find that we won't have that power. We don't have that muscle to address our underdevelopment as individual nations. So it is important. We have to come together as a continent, address all of these problems as a continent. And one way is to have things like the AU being more assertive. And then perhaps maybe it is time we start playing down our sovereignty, because sovereignty seems to get in the way. Maybe it is time we start playing it down so that all the countries in Africa can give more power to the AU to assert itself on behalf of the continent.
Thank you. Mr. Kingsley, thank you. We will get to your point. You made some valid point there.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone, the speakers and everybody on board. I just want to buttress on what the past speakers or hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, but the network is a little bit shaky, but we can hear you. So I will call on Dr. Samson Ogbole. Okay, Mr. Austin, are you there?
Hello.
I can hear you. You are welcome.
Oh, fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, afternoon. We can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I'm saying good afternoon. I don't even know the part of the world that everybody. So it could be morning in where you are. It could be afternoon. So good day is more appropriate. So good day, everyone.
All right, that's good. We have people joining from Canada, America, and Germany. Yeah. We have people from Nigeria, South Africa. So you are right. It's good day. Before you arrive, our panelist, Engineer Samsudeen Adebayo, has done a great job giving a background talk about intercultural dialogue in the role of intercultural dialogue to foster development. And we have been having fantastic discussion. So in the few minutes left for this section, because we have to move on to the next section, we don't know if you have one or two things to tell us. Mr. Austin is a Mandela Fellow and a on-air personality in Nigeria, and I've known him more than 10 to 15 years now, let's say close to 12 years or 15 years, and I've been grateful to have him as my friend, and I'm happy. So, Mr. Austin, can you proceed to tell us one or two things to hear your view?
Yes, so thank you so much, Wole, for this. So quickly, just because time is fast spent, I was to discuss something earlier, but like you said, someone has already touched it as intercultural dialogue and political terrains as requirement for developing Africa. So at the point I was to drive, basically, may not be able to share my slide because of my location at this time, but I'll try to send it through. Africa has a very large youth population. And I think it's something that we need to consider even as we move ahead, with this discourse. And the quote I have here is from Anonymous. It says, "The first tribe is humanity." What that means is that irrespective of ethnicity, religion, culture, and all that, first, we are all humans. And if we must drive this narrative of developing Africa, it must be transactional. How do I mean? I'll say that again. It must be transactional. Many times we come from the continent of Africa as some kind of with that kind of beggarly attitude. We need AIDS, we want help, COVID-19, we want vaccines. No, the rest of the world from projection will depend on Africa in the future because we have the youth bulge. So the argument has always been, how do we turn our youth population, to a democratic dividend than being a disaster to happen in the future? I mean, in 2055, it's projected that Africa is going to have, the highest youth population in the entire world. So when I say transactional, we must begin to equip ourselves. We must begin to equip our young ones, and I hinge that conversation on a threefold kind of approach. First, according to the African Union AU Charter, claims that Africa's youth is the biggest resource, and Africa's growing youth population offers enormous potential. I mean, look at Esther Brume, who is fortunately from my state, Delta, who just picked up the medals in the Olympics. Are we looking at that to develop more, sports enthusiasts or people who have potential in that area? So I was talking about the three areas because I find out time is fast spent. Sorry, my location is not very conducive. When you told me about this, I also pointed that out that I won't be on the road most likely at this time. So, but let me just think that I see that we need to drive this narrative first from the area of strategic education, not just education. That's one, strategic education. So we must begin to look at the potential of our young people and apply them properly.
Correct.
Strategic. So we do that. The next thing would be looking at, the area of sports development, which I think, of course, we have heard over time that sports is a unifier. When it comes to sports, we're not thinking I'm a Nigerian, you are a Sierra Leonean, you're from Ghana or something. We begin to think about the continent. Or for instance, if we're talking about back home in Nigeria, you're not thinking about, okay, you're from Delta, you're from Osun State, you're from Lagos. No, this is a unifying factor. You now begin to identify with your clubs at that level. So we must look at the potential of young people along this line, the blessing of Kagbari, the Esther Brume, call their names. We must be able to, come back home and say, look, hey, the pitch in Lagos, somewhere in the village in Ogun State, we must begin to harness this potential. And another thing that I think will help is this intercultural exchange, like fellowship. Of course, I was fortunate to have attended the Mandela Washington Fellowship in the United States of America in the summer of 2019, and that changed a whole lot. It afforded me the opportunity to meet with Americans and interact them on a one-to-one basis. And that was also the first time some of those Americans were meeting with a Nigerian. In fact, we had a potluck where I shared the egusi soup, recipe with them. They talked about the American burger and other things like that. We moved from there. I mean,
interesting.
If not for COVID, I was already expecting one of my friends in the city of Lincoln, who I met to come to Nigeria, to also have such an experience, but to work on a project together. So we must come to that place where we constantly interact, exchange our culture. And when we do this, it must be on an open mind basis.
Wow.
Yes, I had the cultural shock, or the culture shock you want to talk about, when I got to the US, But even at that, I had an open mind. I wanted to learn. And they were also open enough to learn from Nigerians or a Nigerian like me. You know, so I mean, it's a little disjointed, you know, because of how this whole thing happened. So I talked about strategic education, sports development, and improvement of civic engagement of citizens. You know, we talked about the political breakthrough for young people. You know, at this time, a lot of young Nigerians saying, "Oh no, it doesn't concern me." Even I think it's a syndrome across Africa, or it's an effect across Africa. People are like, "No, I'm not interested. Politics is dirty." No, I think at this time, we need to begin to orientate our people. That's why we need to set up civic engagement centers. We need to teach our people that this is the process, the political renaissance that will bring our people out of the dungeons. So what are we suffering from in the country at this moment? Or what are we suffering from in the continent? I think of that. During my Mandela Washington Fellowship experience, I had the opportunity to interact with over 700 different Africans who were from, you know, different African countries. And the same factor cuts across this entire region. What is that? Our best. We don't allow our best to lead us in Africa.
Wow.
I'll say that again. We don't, in most cases. You want to say a few exceptions. Okay, Rwanda is something that we're still looking at closely because that's a positive example. But across many other African countries,
Mr. Austin,
we have leaders.
Mr. Austin,
I'm sorry about it. Maybe I'm too much.
On that note, one of our guests has contributed earlier, and that's Mr. Kingsley, and he argued that Africa does not lack strategy. What we lack is implementation, and that I noted down because it's as if I'm just getting that for the first time. And will I say that we are not being strategic, not putting our best in leadership?
That's exactly the point I was driving. We're not putting our best in leadership. So when we see people, I mean, from experience and, you know, from statistics, when we see people who have the potential to deliver quality leadership, many times we don't vote those people into power. We don't endorse them. We don't encourage them. And I had the opportunity to discuss with, you know, my state governor at the time in the state of Delta. In Nigeria, and he said, look, election is a different ballgame. The Nigerian type of election is a different ballgame from other elections across the world. Why? Because in other parts of the world, when you see people with leadership potential who have good antecedents, people begin to just raise funds for them. People use their birthday ceremonies to say, look, I'm dedicating this birthday to raise your campaign funds. But what happens in Nigeria? When you have when you have the potential to run for an election, the people depend on you to fund them to vote for you. And that's why the issue of vote buying will come in. So these are the issues. So until we come to that place that, look, it's not just about, we need to retweak our strategy. We need to rethink our processes. We need to rethink our education. You know, I talked about strategic education, not just the book paper education. We need to begin to look at, just like, okay, you know, you must, no, apply. Let people begin to apply the education to their potential. That's how I see Africa rising. But let me tell you, the good part is, from my little experience across Africa and the world, I see that Africa is distinct. Africa has got all it takes to rebuild and reshape itself. The only thing we lack is leadership. And until we get leadership right in Africa, trust me, we may not make good progress. And that's why we remember Madiba. And that's why the fellowship I talked to you about was named that time the Nelson Mandela Washington Fellowship. Or the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Because Mandela again and again has proved to the world that, look, right leadership can be found in Africa. So maybe I just stop here at this time because I think I came in a little late. Sorry, like I said, the network was terribly bad trying to connect and all that. But I want to be part. I want us to, continue with this conversation, and drive a narrative. And that's why I think the work you're doing with the organization, the CDS organization, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because until like minds begin to come on a round table to say, look, it's not just a talk show. After this meeting, we marshal out the next point or the next call for action. And we all begin to move towards that. Then, solution may just be knocking at our doors. Africa has the brightest mind, just as a way of rounding off at this time. Part of those I was fortunate to meet in Washington, D.C., is the famous Dr. Ben Carson, who said to us, 750 young Africans, that the country with the highest per capita income in the United States of America is Nigeria. Because the average Nigerian that gets into the US would not stay with his BSc if he got into the US with BSc. He needs a master's. He won't also be satisfied with his master's. He needs a PhD. Not just in Nigeria, across Africa, we have people who have moved on to the West and they are excelling. They are doing fantastically well. Now you ask the big question. If they are remaining in Africa, is the environment conducive enough?
I'm a testimony.
Yes, and that's the truth. I mean, when we connected the guy, like, where are you? He said, oh, this. I said, wow, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
If you had remained at the Delta State University where we met, pursuing your doctorate at the time, and you had remained 10 years down the line, would you have been able to make this progress? These are the questions begging for answers. So until Africa will recognize their own and create the enabling environment for potentials to thrive, Africa will still be in the loop, unfortunately.
Thank you very much.
I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Engineer Samades, over to you.
Yeah, the speaker has done really well. Has done justice to this in a short period of time. So just to put a little icing on the cake, from what he has said, I can just infer that most African nations need to go and work on their internal democracy. Because in as much as we still have that form of internal democracy and corruption, because I can see we are sugarcoating the corruption, we don't want to mention that word. That is why potentials will not survive. Our democracies in Africa is too costly. Our democracy in Africa is too costly. So like, for example, people in the UK, in the developed world, when you have like he rightly said, don't let me start repeating what you mentioned. When you have the intention to come to contest, people, you don't need to have a billion naira to come to the polls. We have good minds, like minds, that are ready to push this continent. But where would they get the support from? Internally, they can't. Ethnic-wise, they will be segregated. So we need to go back to the drawing board and start working on all these differences, so that at least we can as well push. We have potential in Africa. We have potential health. Like Dr. Fawale rightly said, I'm a living witness to the fact that he said he's a living witness. He knows why I said this. So most people, some of us are still here, they have not left. We are still striving to make our voice being heard. There is no enabling environment. So it's very essential that kind of environment is provided, so that at least we don't keep hammering we have this necessity and stop celebrating mediocrity. So it's very essential.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We cannot overemphasize on this matter. It is something, it's a burning issue, and we are noting everything. And that's why I said that this meeting has been recorded, and by God's will, what we are doing in Absolute Cedar, we are driving voices, we are taking them to high places, and God willing, most of the things that we are discussing here today are going to get to corridor of power soon. All right, thank you very much for joining today's meeting, Finding Ideas 2021. This was the part 1 section of the great meeting that we had. My name is Dr. Oluwole Oluwafemi Gabriel. I'm your host, and I invite you to join the part 2 section of this teaching. And I'm sure that you will join us to be part of the great movement that is ongoing in Africa. Thank you very much.